This is my dad, and this is his 2007 VW T5 Caravelle Executive, which was seen as a luxury people carrier of the time. However, as you can see, it has been used as a work van for the last 18 years and is looking a little bit worse for wear. Trims are falling off, panels are absolutely ruined. Over the next few weeks, my dad and I are going to be removing panels, installing seats and many other things to bring this car back to its former glory. So without further ado, let's recap week 1. So over the last 2 days, I've been sort of cleaning the van and removing all the superficial sort of damage and, sources of any hair, dog hair from over the years, to basically get it prepped and ready to start working on without there being hair coming back and getting into all the places or any dirt or anything. And so today is finally the day where we can start fitting parts. And so the first one we've got to fit is these, which are some uprated boot struts for here, because we have a bike rack on the back, which you'll see in a picture that I'll put up. But basically it makes the weight limit too heavy to for these boot struts to basically hold up. And so what we're going to be doing is putting these uprated ones on that are more useful. They basically can hold a higher weight, so the boot won't fall down when we're working on it, because it has started to come down, but obviously they've just started to degrade over time, and then the boots got too heavy. So yeah, without further ado, let's time lapse it and start fitting these. Okay, so the first act we're doing on this van, and the first thing we're actually ever going to do with working on the car on the channel, is to remove these clips on these boot struts. Now, as I mentioned, these are a bit too weak now to hold up the weight of the boot, and so we're just taking away these clips to try and remove these struts. But that's coming in with a hammer because it's just slightly too tight just to pull off normally, because of the way that it's constructed. Eventually my dad comes in with the hammer and he does manage to knock it off, as you can see here. Eventually it goes. He just has to try and loosen it from the bottom because it wouldn't come off at all. And he prizes it away, and then here we are discussing why it won't fit, and it's because the actual heads need twisting to install properly, as my dad explains here. I suspected it was the case, but I couldn't be sure. And now here I am installing the new uprated ones that should hold the boot up properly. It's just a case of popping them in and ensuring those clips are primed. Then moving on to the other side, it's repeating the same thing, and it should hopefully be easier knowing you know exactly what we are doing. Obviously, as all rewarding things are, it did not become any easier, and we still had just as much difficulty taking it off, and that's probably to the fact it's been on there for 18 years and they've never been touched at all. But there we go, eventually I managed to prise it off with a screwdriver and pop the new ones on, and that is, as Borat would say, a great success. I'm not going to do the accent because that would probably get me deleted off YouTube. While I was celebrating completing the job, my dad came in just to make sure it was fully installed, and because one of the clips slightly slid up and we'd had to take it off during the process, my dad just put it back on and now it's all working. So the little support beam thing is gone, and I'm not dead, so I think that's a success. Alright, so next up on the list is that we're going to do the big piece. This is probably the biggest piece we're going to do in terms of size and sort of difficulty amount of bolts. And that is, we're going to remove these panels here. So as you can see, and you would have seen in the pictures originally, these panels are, yeah, absolutely ruined. And that's after like 18 years of, consistent use for work, traveling. And these are just, they replaced these later on for like what you'll see in the thing, which is like a soft touch plastic rather than felt, because the felt just rips off and it gives you this orange powder that just coats the entire car. I think I cleaned up more orange powder than I cleaned up anything else when I was cleaning the car. So we're going to get these out. Got to find all the bolts, take the trim out, get the panels out and replace them with the new ones. And then, yeah, that will basically be the back of the van, or this, especially this like sort of rear quarter, completely done. And then we can sort of move into the middle section where we've got some stuff to do with the doors, and then the front, which is where most of the main upgrades are happening. All right, without further ado, I'm going to start working on this because otherwise it's going to take us 6 weeks. Okay, so the first thing to do is to remove the D pillar trim, which is just held in by clips, which allows us to access a little clip bolt that's underneath that holds the panel to the pillar side of the car at the back. And this was relatively simple, it's just held in by clips, but we had to be careful not to break any because they're quite difficult to get hold of in small packets. While my dad does that, I'm just removing the two little bolts that hold the panel straight to the chassis in the form of like a little lock, and once these are out, the panel should become a lot looser. While I do that, my dad begins work on removing the rear scratch plate, and this poses a big surprise. There we go.
There's still some glass where we've taken the rear trim off. There's still some glass left in there from when the brake window was broken. There it is. Obviously when it went to the auto repairers, which was an insured company, obviously haven't taken that bit out and hoovered that piece out. But we're going to do a proper job now, clean it out, we'll polish that bit up inside so it's as good as new. And then it's all ready to go back once the side bars are back on.
I mentioned it before, but this van actually got hit by a tractor, so that's why all the glass is in the back, because basically the whole side of the van got taken off. So yeah, we'll get a proper job and get rid of all of that so that never bothers anyone else ever again. It's all clean now, all the glass is gone, so that's not a safety hazard anymore, and it looks a lot better. So we can continue removing the panel when I charge my camera back up, because it died. That's how long it's took us so far. Okay, so removing this panel was relatively simple. We just had to remove the C-pillar, and now we just had to undo every little clip, and the panel pretty much came off quite simple. It's not held in by much. This is the old panel, that's the new one. We've got to get the air conditioning system from this one onto this one before we can fit it into the van, because otherwise we're not going to have air conditioning, so we're going to get to work on that. Okay, so now that the rear air conditioning system is installed, back to owner specifications, and all of the broken clips have been replaced, it's back in with the brand new second-hand panel from T5 Stylize, and this is going to go in exactly how we removed the old one. All the clips just clipping in exactly the same place, and we just got to make sure everything's lined up and no cables are trapped. And with the way my dad was punching those panels there, you could mistake this place for a boxing ring, but eventually everything clips in properly and it's onto the second panel. Once the trims came off very quick, we came across another problem, and that was that the two little clips that hold it to the top of the chassis were just not coming out. They just sort of got stuck over the years, and so my dad had to really sort of step in and just try and pull these out with about every single tool we had in the toolbox. Eventually they came out and we could continue the removal of the panel, and after that it went pretty smoothly, so that is perfect. A fun fact I want to mention about this is that previously, a few years ago, when one of my friends was in the car, that C-pillar, as you can see on the right hand side of the screen, actually was pulled off by him by accident when he got out of the van, so it's been stuck down ever since. So a bit of this process was removing all of the excess sticky residue from both the roof, as you can see it's still there, and then from that pillar itself where we'd stuck it on rather than re-clipping it back on. And when we reinstall that one, when we do get the part in from Germany, hopefully in a few days, as I'm recording and editing this, we can stick that on in a future episode with the actual clips, and everything should be back to normal. But as you can see, we got the panel out a lot easier this time because there wasn't the heater motor or anything in this panel, and so it was pretty much a straight swap because there was nothing plugged into this panel. It was just literally a piece of plastic stuck in there, and so hopefully we can just replace those clips that need replacing and then reinstall the panel as usual. Here you can see my dad actually putting those clips in. Funny enough, we've mentioned that, maybe a bit of editing timing, but here you go, installing everything and it's going well hopefully, and then we can reinstall the panel pretty simply as normal. This is the one with that upgraded soft touch plastic, so it's a little bit more premium, something from the more recent Caravelle executives, a T6. So we're kind of doing a little bit of an upgrade while repairing here. And yeah, here's my dad just ensuring all the clips are straight and all lined up. Hopefully this panel will pop in as usual. we were having a little bit of trouble lining this panel up, and I think mostly that was down to the fact that some of the clips that we hadn't removed were actually bent, and some of the new ones we got were also bent, so it was a case of basically just fine-tuning it and getting them all primed up so they'd all slide in properly. Eventually we got it to work, but it was a little bit of a job, and also trying to actually hook it onto where the window part of the chassis is to keep it bolted, because obviously there's a blind in there that needs to be bolted on so you can't see any of the inside chassis and it looks more premium. So this is just one of those little bits of teething issues, but eventually we managed to get it to work, and again my dad goes back into the boxing ring and punches the whole thing back in, and I go in and install those 2 bolts like on the other side that hold the panel straight to the chassis. Success. Actually, I tell a lie, it was never actually a complete success originally, as the little bolts are held in, but they've got this like little lock thing. I think you could hold things onto it and tie things to it, but that just would not go in straight. So my dad spent about 10-15 minutes trying to just get these 2 bolts to line up properly. Eventually we got it to line up properly, and then we just put in the last covers on the panel, which is where the jack goes and everything. And eventually once all that was lined up, we got it working, and there is 2 little brackets, the 2 little bars that were holding it and pushing it out too much slightly, but eventually we managed to align it so the seats could roll all the way back. And here we go, just putting those 2 final top clips in to ensure that the panel is completely and utterly secured and it's not going to come loose anytime soon. Now that is a success. And here I go again, installing the hardware side of the skid plate rather than the top trim. This is just where all the bolts go in to bolt this to the chassis, and it's the bit that the actual skid plate, scratch plate, can clip into. Alright, so the next step and the final step for this video you're watching now is that we need to polish this or get this really like black, because at the moment it's grey, which match the old trim down here. However, these new ones we've got like a gloss black, and you can see it there. They're not the same. So if I just push this one over, as you can see, they're not the same colour, and we can't be having that because then it just looks tacky. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some trim restorer that's like a black wax, and we're going to stick it over this to get it looking gloss black, and basically that should line up, or at least make it look reasonably close to this, so it all kind of looks flush when it's all back in and it looks like we've done a professional job. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so all I'm using here is a black trim restorer, and it's very strong stuff. It turns the whole thing into a really nice glossy black, and it took it about 30 minutes where I just basically did about 3 coats of it, buffed it, polished it, and then reinstalled it in the van, and it looks absolutely perfect. And now it's on to the finishing touches like the rear D pillars. We'll install the C pillar when it arrives from VW, as the old one broke, but this one went in well. And as my dad so expertly states right here,
I know we're in a hurry.
So to recap what we've done today, we've made great strides towards completing this, and obviously we've removed the old boot struts and we've installed these new upgraded boot struts from Struts Depot, and we've also removed the old destroyed and ruined panels, and we have installed some lovely second-hand ones that are perfect from a Caravelle executive from T5 Styler. So a big thank you to everybody who's watched this far in the video. Nobody ever really gets to the end of these videos, so thank you all so much for watching today's video. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe, you know the rest. Everyone else told you millions and millions of times, I am sure. And yeah, see you in the next one. The next one's good. We're going to install some seats and potentially even install a new blind. Alright, see you in the next one.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.